So you want to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons, huh? Well, today, it's easier than ever to start playing with sites like dndbeyond.com. Not sponsored, but I wish. Throughout this video, we'll be using D&D Beyond to create a character and use them in-game. I'm Crypt-A-Cola, and this is a beginner's guide to D&D. Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. One player is the Dungeon Master, and the other players play through the Dungeon Master's world/story. There are many types of ways to play, and many different types of ways to run the game. In this video, however, we're going to be focusing on being a player, and what to do when you sit down at the table and listen to your Dungeon Master. If you guys would like, I could do a guide to DMing in the future, but without further ado, let's learn you something about D&D. The first thing you'll need to do is make a character. Characters are the player's eyes and ears into the world. You could find a pre-made character, but making a character lets you identify with them and roleplay better. The first thing you need is a race. There are many different races to choose from, and they all have specific bonuses depending on which one you pick. I personally prefer to pick a race based on its roleplay potential rather than its abilities. However, it entirely depends on your playstyle. Remember, D&D is all about the choices that you make, not what other choices people make for you. With that being said, let's get into some of these races. Human. Your standard average Joe that wants to be good at everything. Elves. Elegant creatures that live up to 1,000 years and never sleep. Dwarves. Alcohol-chugging, weaponsmithing, proud short boys that'll give you a roughing up if you point out their height. Gnomes. Short boys that play pranks and are also smart sometimes. Halflings. Jolly, lucky short boys that like to travel. Dragonborn. Not Dovahkiin, but just as cool, with the head of the dragon and powerful breath weapon. Half-elf. My dad was an elf. Half-orc. My dad was an orc. Tieflings. My dad was Barthugama, devil overlord. And many others in various books and expansions. The next thing you'll want to pick is your class. You can think of a class as something your character has studied or trained to be, or it could be something given to them by unknown forces. But we'll get into that when we get into the classes. So, let's just get into them. Barbarian. Big boy that hits things and wears no armor. Bard. I sing, I heal, I buff my team, and get all of the ladies. Or the men, I don't know your preference. Cleric. Sometimes a heal boy that is a devoted follower to a god or pantheon, though they are so good that they should be considered gods themselves. Druid. I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. Also, I can turn into wolves and cast spells. Fighter. A standard sword and shield or archer. Monk. An acrobatic master of martial arts that don't take no shiitake mushrooms and can catch arrows out of the air and throw them back at whoever shot them. Paladin. A tank that takes an oath to their god and can touch themselves to heal up. Ranger. I don't become one with nature like the druid. I overcome it and make it do what I want. Rogue. Does 1,000,000 damage with sneak attack, picks locks, and steals everything. Sorcerer. I was born into having magical powers. Wizard. I studied a lot to get magical powers. Warlock. I sold my soul to the devil to get magical powers. The class you choose will depend on the person you are and how you like to play. The next thing you need to do is roll for your ability scores. Ability scores are basically how good you are at different things. There are 6 different ability scores. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. There are 3 different ways to get these scores. Point buy, standard array, or rolling dice. This is standard array. We're not going to get too far into this one because it's, self-explanatory. With point buy, you can set your different skills. Different numbers require different points, and all the info for that is on the screen now. Rolling is the most common and most fun way to get your ability scores. Roll 4 6-sided dice, get rid of the lowest rolled number, and add the remaining 3. Whatever you have now is your score. Just repeat this 5 more times, 1 for each of your ability scores. On D&D Beyond, you do this by clicking Manual and entering the numbers you rolled into the slots. The higher your score, the higher the bonus is to whatever you roll whenever you roll for that stat or something related to it. Here are the calculations for that here. The next thing you'll need to roll for is your health. You do this by rolling a dice that is determined by your class. At first level, you automatically take the highest possible roll, so if you were using a d6, the highest number you could get is a 6. So you would use a 6 and then add your Constitution modifier to it, and that is your health. Every time you level up, you get more health by rolling this dice again and adding your Constitution modifier to it. After that, you then add it to your total health pool. Next up are your proficiencies. Proficiencies are basically things that you're trained in or have a deep understanding of. There are different proficiencies for different classes and backgrounds. If you use D&D Beyond, then it'll tell you all the different proficiencies you can choose from and the ones you inherently have. When you're proficient with a skill, when you roll with that skill, you add your proficiency bonus, usually a +2, to the roll along with whatever your bonus is for that skill, which is tied to your ability score modifiers. D&D Beyond does this for you, and it's amazing. There's a few things you need to know about your character before you start. I won't be going too much in detail about your backstory and personality in this video, but I can make an in-depth video in the future if you'd want to see it. What happened to your character? Normal, happy people don't go on adventures. Something must have pushed you to being an adventurer. Your parents were slain by goblins. You were exiled from your tribe. You're searching for a cure to a disease that your wife has contracted, etc. This is completely up to you. Your character needs a goal. What do they hope to accomplish by adventuring? Gold? Fame? An antidote for poison? You decide. D&D isn't just a character creation screen, however. There's a whole turn-based combat system. The fighting can take place on a grid or in your mind depending on how you play. But either way, there are some things that stay the same. Let's start with initiative. Initiative is the order of which combat takes place, determined by what you roll at the beginning of combat. Next, we'll go ahead and get into attacks. So with a normal weapon attack, you roll a d20. Let's say we got a 12. That's okay, but a heavily armored opponent may be able to deflect or dodge that. That's where our modifiers come in. You use 2 different skills for different weapons. Most melee weapons use your strength modifiers to hit and do damage. However, some, like daggers, scimitars, rapiers, and some others may use dexterity. All ranged weapons use dexterity for their rolls. With any weapon attack though, if you have proficiency with the weapon that you're using, then you add your proficiency bonus. If you use D&D Beyond, it does it all for you and shows what your bonus to roll is here and the damage for your weapon in addition to how much you add to what is based on your dexterity or strength modifier. If you roll a 1 without any modifiers, it's what's known as a natural 1 or a critical failure, which may have a downside depending on how nice your DM is feeling that day. On the inverse, if you roll a 20 without modifiers, it's what's known as a natural 20 or a critical success. When this happens, you get to double the number rolled for your damage. So how do you know if what you rolled hit your target? If what you rolled is higher than the target's armor class, or AC, then your attack hit and you roll for damage. So, spellcasting is pretty simple in Dungeons & Dragons. There are 2 different types of spell attacks. There are the type that work like normal weapons, where you roll to attack, or they're the ones that go into saving throws, which I'm about to talk about now. Saving throws are another form of defense or attack. If you're a spellcaster, then the chances are you have a spell that requires your target or targets to make a saving throw. A saving throw is when you roll in order to resist or dodge an attack. Depending on what the attack is, you use different modifiers outlined here on D&D Beyond. A huge part of D&D is role-playing. There are skills related to role-playing which include but are not limited to intimidation, performance, persuasion, deception, and etc. Here's an example of how that usually looks. Good sir, these are fine goods, but I'm quite short on coin. Could I perhaps get a reduced price? Your DM would ask you to roll for persuasion. If you succeed, you could get lower prices for goods. Or, reversely, if you fail, you'd probably have to buy them full priced. Exploration is another big part of D&D. While exploring, you could discover dungeons, caves, shacks, corpses, or anything your DM imagines. During this, you might have to use skills that include, but are not limited to, acrobatics to climb a wall, investigation to find traps, or stealth to hide from monsters. And that's basically everything you need to know as a beginner playing D&D. If you guys want to see any videos going into more detail about these things, then let me know. I hope you all enjoyed and have great adventures with your friends. So before this video ends, I just want to say a few things. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded, and it's mostly just with lack of motivation. I have an upload schedule now, however, which is on your screen now. But that's basically it. Bye.